Hello and welcome to the latest episode of your Her Game 2 podcast. I'm your host and my name is Clayton, and today we're joined by another very special guest, Chloe. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. And you've obviously got like everyone, a very interesting story, but I feel like congratulations are in order because you're a recent ambassador. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, back in February 2024 was when I got made an ambassador.
Okay, so I said recent. It's been a little bit longer than I gave it credit for, but we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But would you mind, before we get into the kind of typical questions and everything, would you mind introducing a bit about yourself, who you support?
Yeah, so I'm Chloe. I'm a Bristol Rovers fan. I have been going to games now for many years with my dad. We have season tickets and we sit over in the West Stand.
Very nice. And how far are you from Kaz and Lucy then?
So I think they go up in the North Stand. So we're not too far, but I'm kind of like the other end of the West Stand, kind of closer towards the south. So yeah, a little bit far away.
Nice. Yeah, Bristol Rovers is actually a ground I've not ticked off. I'm a big ground hopper, so I need to get myself down and cheer on the Rovers at some point this season. But that kind of touches on quite nicely into the first section, I guess. You've obviously been involved with Her Game too from the very early days. I remember when we were speaking before we started this, you said you met Kaz and Lucy very early on. Can you tell me a bit about what it was like being involved in the infancy and I guess from your perspective, sharing your journey with Her Game 2? Obviously, everyone will know what Her Game 2 is now, but what was it like for you being involved from so early on, and how did you actually meet Kaz and Lucy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had known of Kaz and Lucy through social media for many years. And it was one day when I reached out to Kaz, I believe it was on Twitter, um, as I'd seen the Her Game 2 campaign and I really wanted to get involved. And that was when we had talks about me becoming an advocate. So I was our very first Bristol Rovers advocate. I joined back in March 2022. And I remember the first ever meeting that I had with Kaz and Lucy. We went to a pub in Bristol called the Welly. And it was the three of us sat down, kind of discussing ideas and everything, and just kind of like what we wanted to do with the campaign and everything. So then, yeah, over the years, I've seen it grow massively. I kind of almost feel like a proud parent, just like looking at how much we've achieved, not only Her Game 2 like overall, but also the Her Game 2 Bristol Rovers team. So we now have a team of, I want to say 9. So you've got myself, Kaz and Lucy, who are the ambassadors, and then we have like the most incredible team of advocates anyone could ever ask for. And just, yeah, we've done so much work over the years, and just kind of like how the campaign's grown, the traction that it's got, the things that we've achieved is just been incredible to see.
Yeah, that's amazing. And looking back at those early days, did you have any idea how big the movement would become and the impact it would have, especially, I guess, with the club you love and support at Bristol Rovers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was something that just felt so special about it, and that was why I really wanted to get my teeth into it and get involved. It was something that, like myself, I could see that we really needed within football, and yeah, it was why I really wanted to like play my part with it almost, and just seeing how much it's grown and just how much support there's been, and just things that have been achieved. It's so wonderful to see, So it's really good.
Oh, amazing. And you obviously touched on when I said recently you made the step up. It wasn't so recently, it was a few months ago, but from an advocate to an ambassador. And you said there's a few of you on the Bristol Rovers team. Would you mind, for someone that is listening that maybe doesn't understand the differences between an advocate and an ambassador, could you talk a little bit about what those differences are? And I guess a little bit more insight, given you've made the transition. What has that actually been like for you? And I guess how have your roles and responsibilities changed?
Yeah, absolutely. So as an ambassador, so I'm the ambassador for Bristol Rovers Women. And as an ambassador, it's about being a role model, and leading on things with clubs, not being afraid to challenge them almost on things, also picking up things like reports and just kind of like monitoring like kind of the match day experience at the grounds. And then with our advocates, they basically support us with that. and like they'll help out on events that we do, whether that's dedicated fixtures or whether it's like stalls and everything. And again, as well, what's really nice with our Bristol Rovers team is that we all sit/stand in like different areas of the ground. So we've got people over in the east stand, in the like northwest, up in the north, myself in the west, and then in the south as well. So basically everywhere is covered. And it's nice because we get that snapshot as to what the match day experience is like from each perspective. So even down to things like sanitary products, like all of us will go into the toilets and double check, and then we'll report back in the group chat. And then if one of them's looking low, then we can then take that up to the club so that they can be replenished for the following game.
Yeah, that's amazing. And is that the sort of thing that, I guess, when you're looking at dedicated fixtures, I think that's the thing that comes to mind straight away. I know, again, you touched on before we hit record, you've done 3 dedicated fixtures with Rovers, I
Yes.
believe. So, can you talk us through a little bit around the first, second, and the third? And I guess what stood out for you in those, and what is it you actually have to kind of be aware of and plan when you're looking at those dedicated fixtures?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one was, I want to say March 2022. We did a double-headed fixture with the men's and women's teams. So the men's team had played Forest Green Rovers at 3:00, and then I want to say it was 7 p.m., but it might have been a little bit earlier, that then the women's team ended up playing Forest Green Women at the Memorial Stadium, but this one was a friendly. And what was really, really nice was that we'd offered 2-for-1 tickets for the fans. So they were able to hang about after the men's game and then watch the women's team play at the Memorial Stadium, because for a long period of time, when the Gas Girls restarted, they didn't actually play at the Memorial Stadium. That has now recently changed. But before then, they were playing over at Lockley Sports Centre. And with that location, you're quite limited on the numbers, just because of how the facilities are. So it was important for us to get our women's team, at the Memorial Stadium. I think it was well over 2,000 fans. I can't remember the exact number, but I know that there was well over 2,000 who were there and they cheered on the women's team to that. The second one then was when we did an initiative called First Time Fans. So we had a group of women who had either never been to a football game before or hadn't been able to go to football for numerous different types of reasons. And what we did was we took them around the ground. So they got a bit of a tour. They got to go over to the dugouts and they met players like Luke McCormick, and just kind of like getting that experience. Because what we wanted to do was share our match day experience with them and just kind of like get a glimpse into like kind of what life is like for us when we're at the games. So then we went down into the South Stand. It was against Portsmouth. We won't talk about the result. And then after the game, they were able to beat players as well, like James Belshaw. So that, again, was really well received, and just kind of like hearing the positive feedback from that group of women afterwards just made it feel so, so special. And then, yeah, dedicated fixture number 3. This is the big one for me. This was my first one as an ambassador. So it's kind of like my baby almost. Like I'm so proud of this event. And what it was we had held the women's team again at the Memorial Stadium. It was their last home game of the season after such a dominant season in the league. Like they were absolutely smashing it. And they were confirmed champions for this game. So I can't remember the team who they played, which is really, really bad. But, it was Liscard. It was Liscard Athletic Women was who they played. And, we managed to arrange for the women's team to lift the trophy on the pitch post-match, which was just the best thing in the world. Like seeing the smiles on every single player's faces, just, it meant the world to me. We had pre-match, we had a little fan zone. So her game 2 had a stall. We had Utilita there with their football rebooted scheme. We had a charity waxing going on, a female-led band, and just like loads of positive stuff going on. And just the whole day from start to finish just felt so happy, so upbeat, and just, positive really. Just there was something in the atmosphere that just felt so magical. And we ended up having over 1.6 thousand fans at that game, which was just incredible to see. And just like having the feedback from the team then on how amazing it felt for them to be at the Mem was just something so special.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely incredible. And well, first of all, congratulations. I know you said that was obviously your first one as an ambassador. So well done. It sounds like you absolutely smashed it. And I'm sure there was a lot of people that contributed towards that. It's so interesting because I know, again, when we were discussing before this, we are talking a lot about like the work that Her Game Too and working together with Bristol Rovers, the presence in the community. And I'm hearing a lot there when you spoke about like the community waxing and some of the other initiatives going on there. What, I guess, from your role as an ambassador, what sort of things have Her Game 2 been able to do with Bristol Rovers in terms of forging a pathway into the local community?
I think a big thing that we've done is bringing in local grassroots teams to come and watch games. So, for example, at the dedicated fixtures that we've done, so the 2022 one and then the 2024 one, we had invited local girls grassroots teams to come and be mascots. So just kind of like really increasing the presence of Rovers and just wanting to support those grassroots teams, bring women into football, bring girls into football, and just really kind of like make it that inclusive space for all, really.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what impact do you think it actually has when you spoke there about, I think, 1,600 people that were at this dedicated fixture, right? What impact do you think it actually has when you've got the ability to put on a dedicated fixture and go and work with local communities where, like you say, for some people, it's their first time going to these stadiums and even attending women's football?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the impacts that we've seen and kind of like this is knocked on from it is now the women's team have been taken over by Bristol Rovers. So they now play all of their games at the Memorial Stadium, and just kind of like, for me, kind of seeing that impact of people bringing along their kids to come and watch the Gas Girls. You've got little girls who are wanting to come along and watch, and just really increasing that presence of the female team for me personally, just kind of like really encouraging people to come along, you know, back their women's team, and just, yeah, getting more fans along to football is just the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, and again, you spoke a lot about like the positive feedback that you got. What can you share some of that? What sort of feedback you actually got?
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of one thing that sticks out in my head, and this is from the fixture back in 2022, is the players having like their profile pictures, their header pictures, like posted everywhere of them playing at the Memorial Stadium. Like, I know they were so proud and just so happy to be there. And just like some of them to this day still have those photos as their profile pictures. I absolutely love it. And then from fans, you know, especially with this most recent fixture, just having that positive feedback with the impact that it made, you know, and like people's kids coming along and just having such an amazing time, seeing the women's team playing on the pitch, you know, and like inspiring like young girls everywhere to be like them, you know, and kind of be like, I really want to do that. I want to play for Bristol Rovers Women's. Like, I want to play at the Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, and I can only imagine, like, obviously, I'm an Arsenal fan, right? I can only imagine if little me was able to go to an event like that at like a Highbury when it was the Arsenal stadium, what impact that has on a child going at that age. It's like you really get to, I was going to say, yeah, I don't know what the words I'm looking for is, but they fall in love with the experience, right? There's something about engaging in the
Yeah.
senses of when you're there that's it's very different to kind of watching it on the television. So I think it's great that you're able to host events and fixtures like that.
Yeah.
Talking a little bit more around the kind of local community, obviously events such as the Patchway Festival, Fun Days, you've done talks at Bath City and BT. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of these different events and I guess how these different community efforts have strengthened the campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of starting off with, we'll start from the very beginning with that one. So Patchway, we were invited to a local festival, Patchway in Bristol, earlier this summer, and we had Her Game 2 stall. So it was myself, Kaz, one of our Bristol Rovers ambassadors, Becky, and then also Eve. She had come along as well to help. And we had like loads of Her Game 2 merchandise all across the stall. We had flags up. We did attempt to have a banner up, but because of the ground, it didn't really work because we were on grass. So we kind of had to ditch the banner pretty quickly. And then we had a competition going as well, where we had a signed Bristol Rovers shirt that people could win. So we had our Bristol Rovers Her Game 2 Southview board. So sorry, Eve, as she is our Bristol City ambassador and the director. So we had our Rovers Her Game 2 board where people could take a photo with it, and they would then be given a raffle ticket. And at the end of the day, we then did a raffle, and whoever's number got picked out won the shirt. So it was given to a young boy who was so happy to win the shirt. It was adorable. He actually then got it framed. I'd been sent across a photo of the shirt that had been framed, and in the corner of it, there is a photo of myself and Kaz with him after we'd given him the shirt, and just, it was the best thing ever in the world. Like, it made my heart explode, like, just incredible. So then also as well, we had the fun day. So we were invited by Bristol Rovers to have a stall at their fun day down at the Mem back in early August, I believe it was. So again, kind of a similar premise. We had a stall with loads of merchandise on there. Again, we had the banner for a little bit. With this one, we didn't have such a competition going, but what we had done is we'd created things like create your own kit with like the Her Game 2 branding on it, so where kids could come over and design their own kit. And then we also had a word search going, which was very, very fun. I did try it out myself and I loved it. And
was the word search all football related?
It was player related. So we had both men's team and women's team players on there. And a little kind of fun thing that we got told was by our head of media, Mitch. And it was one of the players, Taylor Moore, he had found the word search and he was doing it, but he refused to put it down until he'd completed it. Like, he was very much like, he really wanted to get it done and was determined to do it, which was just the best thing to hear in the world. Like, even to this day, I still laugh about that. Like, it's just incredible. So yeah, and then kind of lastly, the talks. So I've been lucky enough to do 2 talks over this summer. The first one that I did was at Bath City. It was to a local school. So basically just kind of like, I gave them an overview of what Her Game 2 is, what it's about, kind of like the work that we've done and everything. I showed them like the launch videos, kind of discussed like how we wanted to go into education, and just kind of like, it was that general overview, you know, just kind of into what we do and just kind of help, you know, educate people into kind of like the issues within football and how we want to make it more of that inclusive space and everything. And it was really well received. We had great feedback from both the school and then also Steve at Bath City. With that one as well, I had the Bath City women's captain, Tara, join me, and hearing her experiences as well was just so incredible, you know, and hearing her story was something truly special to me. And it's something that has really stuck with me. And then also another talk that I've done is at BT. Now that I've basically newly started there, and I've basically set myself in there going, right, I want to do a talk about this. So it was myself and then Kaz had joined me for it, where we held a talk at the Bristol office. Again, kind of a similar presentation to the schools one, but we did include reports. Something that I really wanted to touch on was the report side of it, so people know what we are dealing with and they're hearing people's stories about experiences that they've had at games and just kind of the level of severity to it. So again, that was something that was really well received. We had merchandise there that we were giving out, and just like hearing people's like kind of takeaways on it was just something so refreshing. One that sticks out to me in particular was a girl who works on the same team as me. Her boyfriend is a Leeds United fan, and for ages he'd been saying to her to come along to a game, but she'd always put it off because she just hadn't felt comfortable going. And it was after the talk that she dropped me a message to say she was really inspired after hearing what Kaz and I had to say and the work that Her Game 2 do, that she actually wants to go along to a Leeds United game, which is brilliant. And just, I felt so proud hearing that off the back of the talk, and especially with Leeds being a partnered club and everything, I gave her a little bit more information. So yeah, she feels comfortable enough that she can go to a game now, and I can't wait to hear like her experience when she does go.
Oh, honestly, well done. That is amazing. And that's it, because I think like success is subjective, right? But I always say, even on these pods, if one new person listens to this, if one new person connects to your story, that's a success for me. So when you hear a story like that of someone who historically has been a bit put off by going, then hears from yourself and Kaz and has actually gone, okay, look, do you know what? This sounds like I can give it a go. I think that's amazing. One thing I want to just kind of ask on the back of that was your talk at BT. So I used to work at BT, and I worked with HR and stuff. So I know like demographics, what it's like. And there's generalizations here, but when I was there was data to back it up. It was a largely male-dominated company when I was there, of a certain ethnic demographic as well. So yeah, I'd say stereotypically a lot older and kind of white males. How did you find the talk received when you gave that?
Yeah, I think it was received really well. Speaking to, for example, some of my male colleagues after the talk, they found it really insightful to hear about like experiences that had been reported. I remember having a conversation with one of my colleagues literally in the lift after the talk had finished, and he was saying like he was so surprised to hear about some of the reports. Like he had no idea that stuff like this was going on, and just kind of hearing that for him was very eye-opening. And again, chatting with like my manager afterwards, and you know, kind of how insightful he found the talk and everything, and just like how supportive he's been with it and stuff. It's just, yeah, it was really well received, and hopefully we are looking to do it again, maybe another branch of BT. If not, it will definitely be Bristol. And just overall it has been received really well, whether that was in person or online when we were promoting it and stuff. And people have really taken the time to go away and educate themselves about Her Game Too, what we do, how they can support us. Like, are we partnered with their club? Are we partnered with their local club? Like how we can help support people and how they can help support us.
Yeah, no, well done. I feel like we've been talking a lot around the positives, but obviously there are some negatives that come with the territory. And you touched on earlier, I can't remember if you said if it was like an advocate or an ambassador side of things, but you need to be willing to go and kind of challenge the way things are done, and yeah, just not kind of always say yes to everything. And obviously Bristol Rovers has had its fair share of controversy over the years with Joey Barton, Giovanni. Where do I start with that? How did those two players and everything that came around it make you feel as a Bristol Rovers fan yourself?
Yeah, so we'll start off with the Joey Barton situation. It's a tough one. Like it's one that I look back on, and it's something that it was a really hard situation to deal with, but I'm really proud of how the team came through it. So there was a lot kind of going on with court
And the
cases.
team being Her Game
The
Too,
team,
or
Her Game 2 team, yeah, our Her Game 2 team. So people like Kaz and Lucy and our advocates, you know, and just like, so there were things like the court cases that were going on, and just kind of how Barton was being, a couple things that he was saying, and like we had to challenge the club a lot with him. It wasn't easy, especially some of the conversations that we did have to sit down and have with them. Like I know Kaz was such a champion with it, and how she handled it was just like, I'm in awe. Like when I look back at how strong she was, yeah, it really wasn't easy. And then the Giovanni Brown situation, I still remember this day, the day that we announced him, as if it was yesterday, because it is one that really, really sticks out to me. So I remember kind of catching wind of like kind of mumbles that we were going to be signing him, but nothing had been official yet. And I remember seeing it, ironically, I was at the gym on the treadmill, and I remember seeing it, and just kind of like a wave of panic that came over me. I had to stop what I was doing, and I had to go away for a little bit, because there was just kind of a sense of panic because of everything that was going on, as well with him and the court cases that he had. And then when he got announced, that was when everything really started to go down, and the reaction to it was really shocking, because for some reason people took it upon themselves to attack Her Game Too as the reason for his signing, even though we don't have any say in who the clubs sign, you know. And it, for some reason, people were attacking us as if we were the ones who signed him, and it was we didn't have any involvement with it. So it was horrid. Social media really just became this dark place, and it was really, really tough to deal with. Twitter in particular was the one that it became unbearable, just how much hate was being sent towards us, and just the fact that we were getting targeted by these trolls. It was really, really horrible. So a lot of us privated our social media. For a bit, we stepped away from social media. Kaz and Lucy actually took the brave decision to stop attending games. They stopped attending because what they were dealing with was absolutely horrid. And we actually revoked our partnership with the club. So we used to be partnered with Bristol Rovers. And then when that situation happened was when we had to draw a line and go, we need to stop this for a bit. And it was hard. It was really, really, really hard. I remember, like, I was still going to games with my dad, but feeling so on edge, being like, what's somebody going to say to me? What is that person thinking of me? Like, is that someone who said something to us online? And just kind of, there was a lot of anxiety in the air about it. And just, it was a really, really tough one to deal with when we had signed him. And then obviously the club got rid of Barton in November 2023, I believe it was, which for me, there was kind of a sense of relief to it. It had been really hard under Barton, just kind of like with the character that he was and the people at the club, like they kind of took a little bit of a backseat and just kind of let him run for a bit. And there was definitely a sense of relief when he had gone, and just kind of now bringing in Matt Taylor, chatting to him and just kind of like his plans for the club. It feels a lot more refreshing, and I kind of feel like I've got my club back. Kaz and Lucy have started coming back to games, which is brilliant. Like, seeing their faces down the mem is one of the best things in the world. And just kind of like, the club are now kind of more willing to work with us. So we are working on getting the partnership back in place. We've done things like the dedicated fixture this year, and just kind of like a lot of steps that they're taking show that they really want to work with us. We've had chats with like the vice president, who is really keen to strengthen the relationship with her game team in Bristol Rovers. So there are positives to it, but when I look back, it was really a dark time. But I'm really lucky that I had such a strong network in our Her Game 2 team, not only Bristol Rovers, but our Her Game 2 team as a whole, to be there to support myself, to support Kaz, Lucy, our advocates, just kind of really rallying around us in what was a dark time for our club.
Yeah, I can imagine. And yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. I can imagine how difficult it is to kind of relive it. You obviously described it as a very dark period, so I imagine that's not easy to talk through. So thank you for sharing that. And I should have actually started with this. I feel like Joey Barton is probably well advertised about him, so I won't. Yeah, I think everyone will be aware, but I'm conscious the Giovanni Brown one, I don't know if you would agree with this, but maybe not so well documented. So for anyone that isn't aware, I'm just going to read from a BBC Sport article when Bristol Rovers signed him, just to give an illustration on what we're talking about. So Giovanni Brown at the time was a 28-year-old who was suspended by Exeter in February and hadn't played since. Because he was charged with assaulting 2 women. So that's what we're talking about here when we're discussing the player, and for obvious reasons, that's why it was such a controversial moment in time, I guess. And yeah, to add fuel to the fire, Joey Barton was obviously the manager at the time. So yeah, a very troublesome time for everyone involved, I bet. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot to unpack there. I kind of want to take it in the direction of when you had to, well, it wasn't on you, but you as a team make the decision to step away from Bristol Rovers and kind of revoke that actual partnership. How did that make you feel, and what was that process like before we come back onto the positives where it's a working partnership again?
Yeah, It was hard. I think if I had to sum up how I felt, would be heartbroken. It's something, obviously, no one ever wants to suspend a partnership with their club, but with how Rovers, what was going on at Rovers, we had to do it, and just, I think if I remember correctly, they were actually the first club to be partnered with Her Game Too as well. So they had lost that title, and just it was a really tough one to deal with. And I just remember, feeling so disheartened, so heartbroken, and just kind of like lost a bit. I didn't recognize my club, with everything that was going on with it. And it's something like, to this day, that it still breaks my heart to think about, that we had to do in order to protect ourselves realistically.
Yeah, and something else that just springs to mind is when you obviously spoke about Kaz and Lucy, unfortunately, but understandably, even though it shouldn't have been a case, took a decision to not attend games anymore. And you spoke a lot about the abuse that Her Game Too, I think both on social media and in person, were getting, especially around the signing. Look, what that's the one thing I'm struggling to wrap my head around. Like, what were people saying to Her Game Too and yourselves as ambassadors and advocates, and what were they trying to blame you for?
They were basically trying to blame us for the signing,
Yeah, because
was
that's what I
how I
understood from
kind
what
of
you said
understood
it,
it.
but I
Yeah.
hadn't quite read. I don't understand it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I remember feeling quite confused as well, because the kind of general vibe to it was that they were basically being like, it's your fault that, like, the club have signed him. And it's like, well, we don't control who the club signs, and it was a hard one to deal with. And just kind of like, there were kind of other comments as well that were made, but that was kind of the general one. And people basically then taking a dig at the campaign, and just like taking a dig then at people individually. Like Kaz, I remember seeing and like talking to her, because some of the stuff that was just being said online was absolutely vile, and just being there to support her through that, and just seeing how brave she was with it, was something to this day that I still look at her with awe, just at how brave she was with that. Because people, especially online, can really just be horrid, and especially a lot of like the faceless trolls, people hiding behind like pictures of players, who will say stuff to you online, but they won't say it to your face. It really was, like I said earlier, just such a dark place, and like a horrible place to be.
Yeah, and I guess with that in mind, I'm imagining with the Joey Barton situation as well, because I think there's a certain population of people where I can't believe it, but he's kind of idealized and idolized as well, and I can't wrap my head around it. But
Yeah.
you combine that with the type of people that you just described, they tend to be the faceless people on social media. How is that now? Is there still a backlash towards Her Game Too and in the Joey Barton area of social media? And how does that typically surface these days?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is still a part of the fan base who idolize Barton, even though he is now long gone. We have Matt Taylor, and he is doing the best that he can to bring the fan base back together, because that was something kind of Barton as well. The fan base was extremely divided. It was a really, really horrid time, whereas Matt Taylor now is doing his best to bring the fan base back together, and work with the club, to kind of make a massive change. But there's still quite there's a small group of fans basically who are still kind of worshipping the ground that Barton walks on, and just kind of reading what they have to say and everything. We have seen a couple instances recently of, again, people taking a pop at Her Game Too. Again, when then kind of we not confront them about it, but try to speak to them, they tend to back down. We had a case where when we had spoken to someone about abuse that they were saying about her game too, they then backed down when we spoke to them about it, you know, and it's a hard one. I think in an ideal world, it would be lovely if just like, you know, we could all, like, all the fans could just get behind Matt Taylor and leave Barton in the past. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen, you know, and just, I think there's still definitely a lot of work to be done, but we're seeing a lot more now a support of her game too. Now that we are under Matt Taylor, you know, the club's going in a new direction. They've got all new like personnel, like staff wise, in the sense of like we've got a new president who's come in, vice president, and just like loads of changes going on behind the scenes, and just there's a lot more support towards her game too now, which is brilliant to see. You know, conversations that I've had with people whilst I've been at the Mem this season, obviously off the back of the dedicated fixture. So there's definitely a lot of positivity to it, and we are seeing people now really supporting what we do, alongside obviously you then have that small group of kind of like Barton worshippers, if you will, who are still kind of stuck back in those dark days, if you will.
Yeah, of course. And we'll touch on the kind of positive era that's coming in a second, but just want to stay there while we're on it, because I know, again, something else that you said to me was how yourself, Kaz, Lucy felt the need to support women at Rovers during that period, right? How difficult was it having to disassociate yourselves when all of that was going on? And was there any influence from the women's team in that period? Like, did they have any connection to you in terms of how they were feeling?
Yeah, it was a hard one, because obviously we still wanted to kind of make our presence known so that women attending Rovers games knew we were still there to support them, regardless as to what was going on. But it was hard in the sense of like the club obviously weren't promoting it because we'd suspended the partnership, and just kind of like we were just having to do what we could in order to make people feel supported, especially around the time that it felt quite hostile, and just like trying to be there for people but not having the club's backing was quite hard. And with the women's team, it's a hard one, because this is a hard one to answer. Sorry, I've kind of thrown myself off there with with where I was going with it.
No,
Because
you're
I
all
think,
good.
yeah, I think for them it was a hard one as well, kind of seeing what their club was going through, you know, and just kind of, I can't imagine how it must have felt for them, especially being women in football, and like hearing kind of some of the stuff that Barton was saying, especially now that he's left, and seeing what he's posting on social media, how hard that must be for them. It's something that, yeah, it's really difficult to think about.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, it's a really tricky topic to be able to process and talk through. So like, honestly, you've been amazing with how much you've been sharing, and I know it's not easy, so credit to you. And I think it's one thing talking about it on reflection, but the fact that you had to kind of live through this as well is another thing. So yeah, credit to all of you and how you dealt with it. I guess before we kind of swing back to more of the positive things, and I know you've achieved amazing things with her game too, which I want to talk about. If I could ask you just one final question on it, what message would you give to those that are still clinging on to the negative views, and how we can keep pushing forward in such, less so now, but what was a difficult environment?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I think for me, there's probably a part of just kind of like wanting to help people envision football as more of an inclusive space, you know, kind of now we're in kind of like our Matt Taylor era, if you will, and just kind of the club is moving in a new direction. And I think it might take people a bit of time to realize that. With obviously you need, for example, the squad to gel. Like we've got a kind of brand new squad, if you will. Obviously a lot going on behind the scenes then at the club with management and everything. So I think it's one where it's kind of like, I would hope now that everything really has changed, that people will kind of be more open to seeing the club in a new light, and just kind of going back almost to how it was pre-Barton, you know, and just kind of, yeah, we're still there kind of doing what we're doing. We're doing a lot of work with the club to help strengthen the relationship, and just kind of being there to support women and girls at those games.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the thing with anything new, there's the opportunity to breed positivity, right? So yeah, I'm same as you. I hope that it is an opportunity for everyone to gel, and sounds like you've got a manager in place that seems like the perfect person to be helping and leading that. Have you heard
Yeah.
anything, or I don't know if you've had the chance to interact with him yourself? Is he on board with her game too? I take it he must be
Yes.
if the partnership's back in place.
Yeah, Matt Taylor has just been brilliant. So a group of us from Her Game 2 went down and met with him at the training ground in August. So it was myself, Kaz, Lucy, and then one of our wonderful advocates, Jess. Matt Taylor had given us some of his time where we were sat in his office doing a presentation to him about what Her Game 2 is about, talking to him about our experiences, giving him a bit of history to kind of what we have done with the club, what we've been through, and just his response to it was incredible. I remember looking over at one point and seeing him making notes, and just my heart burst, because I remember sitting there thinking, he gets it, you know, and he wants to be involved. He wants to support us. And it was just brilliant. And then afterwards, it kind of turned to a bit of a Q&A where he was then sat there kind of asking us these questions. He wanted to learn more. He was so intrigued and interested and just keen to be a part of it. And we've talked to him about plans that we have in place, and he is keen to do kind of any social media work that we may want him to do. He's even put forward a player advocate for us, which is Taylor Moore. So the same player who was doing our word search at the fun day. So we've had brief talkings with him, but we're hoping to speak with him. But the fact that Matt had put someone forward as well really meant a lot, because it showed that he wanted to get involved, but also he really wants the team to get involved and the team to understand it. So hopefully we should be able to present to Taylor Moore soon and kind of get him on board, get him as an official advocate. But yeah, it's just been incredible. And I remember as well, we'd given him a Her Game 2 badge at the awards night. And when Matt Taylor went up on stage to give his talk, he had his Her Game 2 badge on. And I was crying. Like, I had happy tears going down my face, just seeing that badge like up on stage with him. Just, it was the best thing in the world, genuinely. He's just been incredible, and I'm so grateful for just how supportive he's been.
I mean, as far as role models go, the way you're describing him, I think when you're going from the way you described it, like a dark period at the football club you love, to what now sounds like, a beacon of light coming and helping to steer the ship in a different direction. He sounds like an absolutely incredible role model. So yeah, that sounds exciting. Can you share a couple of things in terms of what you're hoping to achieve as a team with the ambassadors and advocates? Any plans on the horizon at Rovers?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, for the women's team, I want to do another dedicated fixture. So obviously we now have them at the Mem for all of their games, which is just the best thing in the world. Like, hearing that news of the takeover and that they were at the Mem just was amazing. Again, I remember crying when that announcement came out too. So for me, I want to do another dedicated fixture and really support the team, you know, and kind of really help make our presence known, get more people along, and just really, really promote the women's team, especially now that they are at the men full time. And I think, again, with the men's, we want to do another dedicated fixture. Maybe around International Women's Day would be brilliant. So just kind of like, we're in the early stages of looking at that and just kind of speaking with the club and everything. But for me, those would be the two big things, would be those dedicated fixtures and just kind of like really getting the partnership back in place as well. So we are in the final stages of getting it sorted, and then Bristol Rovers will be a partnered club again. And that will be such an amazing day. I've had talks with our head of media about how we can like kind of advertise it on social media, and just, yeah, those three I think are the big ones. So the two dedicated fixtures, and then getting that contract signed, getting the partnership done. Like, let's do it. Let's get this back on. The dark times are in the past now. Let's move on. We've got this brand new manager who is just brilliant. Well, I say brand new, but he's been with us since about November 2023. But still, we're in a new era. We're in, like I said, our Matt Taylor era. You know, get the club back on board with Her Game Too, strengthen that relationship, and just really work together to make an impact on the local community.
Yeah, that sounds so encouraging, and I'm hoping by the time this episode releases that contract will be signed, sealed, delivered. On the positive side of things, so you spoke there about Matt Taylor picking up an award. He had his Her Game 2 badge on. FCA's 2023. That was obviously a huge, well, it's a yearly event in the football world. What was that like to be part of that in 2023? And how would you say that experience helped to highlight the work that Her Game 2 are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Her Game Too, we are all volunteers. We do this in our spare time around our full-time jobs. So getting any kind of recognition is always so special to us, you know. And that was my first ever award ceremony with Her Game Too. It was held up in Anfield, and it was just one of the most incredible nights of my life. I remember like looking around and just being in awe that we were here, you know, and it was just something so special. And with that one, it holds a special place in my heart because that was the year that we did the double. So we had won Best in Women's Football for an organisation, and then the brand new award for last year, which was the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Award, again for an organisation. So we did the double, which was just incredible. We had so many ambassadors there from all across the country, and just like being able to meet up with them, celebrate the work that we've done, you know, was just incredible. And I've got so many lovely memories from that night that will just forever stick with me. And it's something that I'm so incredibly proud that we were able to achieve.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. And do you think it did have a knock-on impact in terms of raising awareness outside of just local communities, having it on? Because I think it is like it's a global thing that's recognized, right? The FCAs. So do you
Yeah,
think
it
it
is.
did have an impact?
Absolutely. There was a lot. So obviously you had the people who were there kind of like talking to kind of our nominees and everything and other award winners about what we do, and kind of being able to connect with people there. But then also, yeah, kind of that outreach on social media globally from the awards, you know, showing, like talking about Her Game Too and really kind of pushing what we do. It was something that, yeah, I definitely reckon there has been an impact. We've obviously been growing again since, and yeah, it's been really, really positive to see, and it's something that I think forever we will always be proud of.
Ah, amazing. Hopefully it will be replicated year on year. And on that note, I would look to wrap us up and get us out of here very soon. But before I do that, I've got one, maybe two more questions I want to ask you. But before I do, I want to give you the chance to say, is there anything you feel that we may not have covered that you'd like to talk about or discuss?
Oh, I mean, I think we've probably pretty much covered everything. Yeah, I'd say so.
Nice. Okay, I'll take that. Feel like I did a good job then. Final couple questions is just, obviously you've touched on it in many different areas of the pod today, but if I could just ask you in your words, what is Her Game 2 to you?
That is a very big question, because I could talk about Her Game Too for days. Like, for me, it is something that is so close to my heart, because the work that we are doing is so vital, and you see the output then from what we are doing, you know, hearing stories from young girls, from women, you know, how they feel a lot more supported, knowing that we are there for them. It's just been incredible. But also, there's a strong sense of community with our ambassadors. That is something for me that I will forever be grateful for, is the support network of our ambassadors. You know, just I've made friends for life with them, and just how supportive they are. It's so amazing to be able to go and like meet up with them before the games and everything. So like this season, I met up with Heidi, our Northampton ambassador, and her daughter Honey, and it was the best thing in the world being able to go and see them and just like have a catch up with them. I remember walking through the crowd as I was going over to see them, and Honey was shouting my name, and my heart was bursting. I just wanted to like teleport over there if I could, as I'm trying to navigate through this crowd to go and see them, you know, and just kind of, yeah, it really is a situation of friends for life, and just kind of the support network that you get, and being able to go and do stuff. It's so special, you know, and it does feel very rewarding. As much as we have a lot of the dark stuff that we deal with, there is still the rewarding side to it. And it's just, Her Game Too has changed my life. Realistically, it really has. You know, it's changed kind of my experience at the football, and then my life, in the sense of having that support network of the team around me, and just making new experiences every day.
That is beautiful. And two more, I promise, final ones. On the back of that, you obviously said that there's some dark stuff, but there's some rewarding things. So on the dark stuff, could you point people in the direction? You mentioned about reports earlier. If people need to file a report, could you kind of tell us a bit more about how they can go about doing that? And then the flip side, on the more rewarding things, if people are interested in becoming an advocate or an ambassador or supporting the campaign in any way, in your own words, could you tell the listeners how they could potentially get involved and support in any capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start off there with the reporting. So we have a designated page on our website, which I believe is www.hergame2, but I could be wrong. But we have a designated page on there where people can file reports. We also have across grounds that we're partnered with, so partner clubs. In their grounds, we will have things like posters up with telephone numbers that people can message in order to file a report. There's graphics on the big screens, posters in toilets. There's a lot of kind of visibility around how people can report at the club if they didn't want to use the reporting page. And a lot of clubs now, we've worked with them to put those measures in place so that they also have a direct reporting line in which we can then assist them with. And then supporting Her Game Too. So again, kind of going to the website and seeing all the information on there on how people can support us. Again, following us on places like Instagram, on Twitter, or X as it's now known as, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it, we've got the social media. So again, that is all at Her Game Too. And we obviously promote there a lot of the work that we do. And again, kind of looking to support us, we've got loads of information again on the website, or even just kind of reaching out to one of us. You know, we would always be happy to talk and assist.
Amazing. And you'll be pleased to know you got the trivia correct. It is hergame2.co.uk. So no tough Oasis drummer questions here. Just what is the domain name to get your tickets? But Chloe, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing such insightful and impactful stories. I know it can't have been difficult, and yeah, I think the Bristol Rovers team behind Her Game Too, including yourself, have been through a very interesting journey, but one that I'm hoping is now on a very positive trajectory, and I'm very excited to hear about all of the work that you all achieve together, and hopefully we'll do another pod in the future to discuss all of that. You mentioned social media as a mechanism for people to potentially get involved and support. Are you on social media, and do you want to share your handles if you feel comfortable?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on Twitter, or again, X as it's known as now, and then Instagram. Both of those are at Chloe Watts _10. I believe as well on the Her Game 2 website, you can also get our social medias on there. But yeah, that's kind of the main two for me, for people to reach out to me.
Amazing. And I think this is a record because I've gone a whole hour without plugging the podcast. So I will do that now. But genuinely, what we were talking about earlier, jokes aside, it's so true. When I say about if one person listens to this and resonates with Chloe's story, if one person listens to this and has the effect of the person you spoke about earlier, that now feels comfortable to go to Leeds and watch a game, that's all we can ask for at this stage. So all we ask is, if this has been an episode, or if this series is something that you engage with, anything resonates with you, you support it, just please, if you're on YouTube, give the stream a like. That's all we ask. If you're not subscribed to the channel, 50% of people that watch actually aren't subscribed. You might not even realize that you're not subscribed. Subscribe to the channel so you can see more interviews with ambassadors and advocates such as Chloe, player advocates. We've obviously done one with Lucas Jukovic, and many, many more exciting guests to come. If you're listening on audio, please consider giving it a 5-star review. If you think it is a 5-star podcast, obviously, but it's all with the ambition of just trying to raise awareness. So please share it with your friends, your family, your colleagues, whoever you think would benefit from it. Chloe, once again, thank you very much. This has been an absolute pleasure. You're a credit to yourself and the team, and looking forward to hearing more from you guys in the future. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.